Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John's reports for the 14th. Well, we're starting off with a bit of a dip, coming off again. This is where every time we get close to the breakout, you get more on the tariff situation. And then they're trying to blow up the whole Epstein thing. And more nonsense of whatever. But at the end of the day, we've been riding along at this relatively lofty level, and until we start to get real, complete data, we've started to get some inclinations that things are not as horrible as everyone thought they were. Um, but then there's the question of, is Powell going to be gone? Because rumors started flowing over the weekend that he was considering resigning, and well, that's thrown a lot of things in turmoil. Um, because at the end of the day, it's really hard to justify his position. But now they're taking it to a new level where the renovations they've been doing at the Fed, they're calling it the Fed Palace. Maybe a bit excessive. $500 million or whatever they're spending on remodeling and stuff. They might use that as justification to move him out earlier, and that could enough to do it. And but there's no guarantee that even if he was gone, that you would see the change that Trump wants. But um, definitely an interesting one because certainly doesn't make sense what happened in last November versus where we're at now, and with inflation far more contained, why rates wouldn't come down when they needed to come down in an emergency situation right before the election with inflation running super hot. So it's just a bad narrative all around because it had nothing to do with the economics of what was taking place, and um, just kind of really makes the Fed seem a bit useless, authoritarian, not something that surprises anyone because people have been complaining about the Fed for quite a few decades. From an NQ standpoint, relatively the same, and you can see the bigger dip in the NBI and magenta reading down to below that 25, and so that becomes a critical level. But we're going to watch here is the rise of India white, still below 6. When you get over 6 to the 9 range, that's when you can start to see a bit more short strength from it. But you're still a long way from the 76%, which of course is still rising to the point where you're almost right at where you're actually above where the initial part of the breakout took place, but where it converted into the green section. Um, it's all good stuff from that standpoint. And of course, treasuries from where they are with the yield dropping on them, it's sort of forcing the Fed, at least from a market standpoint, to say, hey, you're not justified. Though it is surprising that you don't have more foreign demand, but that just, I think, is more of an indication that the world economy wants to stay away from Trump in some aspects, but also that they have their own difficulties, and in some cases they need to just support their own economies as well as their own currency. From an oil standpoint, still not good. Um, Back and forth. And again, this gets back to supply, demand. It's also about, is there the ability to increase supply enough? And are you going to continue to have issues in the Red Sea, Strait of Hormuz, these other issues? They're having a premium, and that's keeping oil at relatively high levels, and that really is not as supportive for the growth that they might want to see or expect. So well, all the seeds have been set for things to take off. It's just a matter of working through a lot of these little difficulties. This is a nightmare for the year because those letters that went out, 30% tariff on EU and that, I don't see the EU making a deal. It just doesn't seem like it's likely. They think they're going to support theirs, but their industries. But at the end of the day, they're going to get crucified on this. And they're going to hold tough, but the rates they charge for American products and stuff coming into the EU, it's astronomical. It's not fair. So the fact that Trump, the 30% really just makes it neutral. But they're not going to see it that way because they want their advantage. And like Trump said, though, if 30%, if they decide to tack on, which Ursula von der whatever, has said that she will increase them, as a proportional response. And Trump has said, "You add anything, and we're just going to add to it." So yeah, that's trade war, particularly with your NATO allies. So interesting, and I just don't see that as positive for the euro. In fact, I would think that's getting close to a death knell because. Um, Depending on who the Fed chairman becomes, you might dry up some of that liquidity they've been flooding Europe with as far as dollar capability, and that would definitely send the euro into a tailspin. I don't think anyone wants to see that, but um, the justification for where the euro is now isn't really there. It also was a bonus for gold moving up. So heightened tensions always do that, and then you can see, contrary to where the Nasdaq was going, Bitcoin breaking out and we talked about this, some of this. We had the giant wallets, and the question became, are these going to be moved for staking purposes? And obviously, the accumulation from a lot of these ETFs and that have been so dramatic that they outstrip, any mining rewards in that to the point where uh, it's just going to escalate. And that's just going to fuel even more people wanting to get into mining. You also see that what was it, United Arab Emirates and Dubai that allowing payments in Bitcoin and that for or crypto in general. That would be interesting because that's where you start to break into nominal use, and that's just something that hasn't happened to this point. But there's some also critical crypto bills coming up this week, so I think this is all you know, buy the rumor, and then you might get a little bit of a pullback once the actual final reality is. But from a 50K standpoint, you can see finally the MBI white spike. So it started from this one back right over here, and amazing run from the upside to it. But then MBI white started poking up early, right before the breakdown. That was Friday, and continued to stay all the way through, even ending the day with below 25 on a magenta. That was clear short. In fact, it did short right before the close. That was the value there. It took it at the bottom, 62 range. So yeah, interesting, but I don't think it's much to do about anything. This is part of that summer. We expected volatility increase to happen after the 4th of July, and now you're starting to get in between it. And uh, it just becomes, I think, the question of when you start to get readings in that with mixed unemployment and that you're going to continue to get this staggered thing, and this is part of that pain element, that Trump had been warning people that it's going to be a little bit rough before it gets better. And for the investment stuff that's about to take place in the following year is where it's really going to start to begin to make a big difference. But yeah, the remainder of this year, I think, probably still going to be a bit rough. You can see the interaction from Friday is just back and forth, and then ending up weak as we got towards the end of it when all of the comments and stuff started and the rumors floating about Powell began. And that led to the drop in Asian future open, and that's kind of what we're dealing with, the attempted recovery right now here in the European session. But that's the long and the short of it for now, and we'll continue to follow it. But we're looking for some good data to come out by midweek, and that be able to make some clear determinations as to a broader direction. But overall, everything is just sort of okay. We'll leave it at that. As always, trade well. Have a good one. Anything relevant, I'll put it on the team chat.